Okay, so I'm happy now to talk to you about John Keats, a true genius when he was alive, and also sort of a sad tale of what could have been. For Keats actually died of tuberculosis when he was only 25 years old. One of the sort of jokes is that Keats, was put here on Earth to make every other writer feel bad because he accomplished so much genius in such a small time. He was hardly even a grown up, and he created this huge, giant amount of brilliant work. Some people have, criticized certain elements of it, and with good reason, but there's definitely enough brilliance there that anybody who could accomplish that in a lifetime, any writer or artist would be happy to have it, and he did it all at a relatively young age. So he was very cherished for his productivity and insight. Even when he was alive, he was well, respected. For the most part, of course, some people talk trash because that's what some people do, but he was looked up to, and he was definitely mourned when he passed. So luckily, though, we do have some good work to talk about. We're going to talk about one poem and one big idea of him in this discussion. So the poem first, the one we're going to discuss is called Ode on a Grecian Urn. This is a brilliant piece of work that also, if you just start reading it without sort of any, preparation, you'll probably find it kind of off-putting and overly difficult. The language in it does seem at times a little bit old-timey or a little bit complicated, but once you sort of get used to it, it does become easier to understand. It is difficult at first, though. I acknowledge that. For years, I had trouble understanding this poem, but I think I'm getting somewhere with it. It's sort of a meditation on a lot of different things, on the nature of permanence, eternity, choice, art, love, all of these sorts of things. But the setup is very basic. The basic idea is that there's this urn, okay? So basically like a vase, and it has a picture on it, okay? So there's a picture on this vase, like a painting, and that's it. Okay, that's the Grecian urn. He's basically writing an ode. He's talking about this Grecian urn and what's painted on it and what all of that represents. So just to sort of walk through it a little bit, we'll just sort of take our time here. So he's sort of kind of talking to the urn in the beginning. So it says, "Thou still unravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time, sylvan historian who canst thus express a flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme. What leaf-fringed legend haunts about thy shape of deities or mortals or of both, in Tempe or the dales of Arcady? What men or gods are these? What maidens loath? What mad pursuit? What struggle to escape? What pipes and timbrels? What wild ecstasy?" So he's basically, in that whole section, he's just describing the urn, like it's it in a sense, and there's the woman on it is sort of the unravished bride of quietness, that the slow time is the slow time of art. And one of the basic ideas here is just that in an artwork, in any artwork, it's basically a frozen moment in time that lasts forever. And in that, there's something kind of, terrifying and harrowing a little bit, that there's this kind of permanence that's going on that's frightful in a sense, because it never stops. And that in this permanence, there's both something awesome, like there's something beautiful and amazing about something that goes on forever, but then there's also something profoundly terrifying about something that goes on forever, and that for us, we can gain a lot of understanding via examining the difference between these things. And this idea just becomes more pronounced in part two of the poem, this idea of permanence and stop time. So as it says, "Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Therefore ye soft pipes play on, not to the sensual ear, but more endeared, pipe to the spirit, ditties of no tone." So like the idea here is that there's music, like in the picture, there's somebody basically playing a flute or something along those lines, and that pretty much that music is never going to be heard, right? Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. The idea of music. So that basically, like, it's just going to be going on forever. This silent song is going to be happening forever. "Fair youth, beneath the trees, thou canst not leave thy song, nor ever can those trees be bare." You can start to see a little bit here where this idea of permanence starts to become actually kind of terrifying, right? Because there's this youth, a young person beneath the trees by this music, but he's never going to be able to leave, and the leaves on the tree are never going to be able to fall, that they are literally stuck there forever. And that's kind of terrifying, right? You think of immortality or of permanence as being something nice, but here we start to see, the horrifying element, and it only gets more sort of terrifying as it goes. It says, bold lover, never, never canst thou kiss, though winning near the goal, yet do not grieve, she cannot fade, though thou hast not thy bliss, forever wilt thou love, and she be fair. Okay, so basically, male and female, okay, the unravished bride of quietness, in a sense, and the bold lover, and the lover is so close to being able to kiss her, he's like right there, but he will never be able to do it. Right? So that's like that idea of constant anticipation that he like wants it to happen, but it'll never be able to happen. And that's sort of a comment on art and permanence, right? Because it's right there within his grasp, but he'll never be able to have it. Think of other works of art, like the Mona Lisa. She's going to have that same smile on her face forever, right? And she can never change it. Or any other great work of art that you can think of. Think of one, anything. Just some piece of art hanging in your wall, hanging in your house or something like that, that literally the thing pictured in it is never going to have the liberty to change, the freedom of choice. These things are all going to be denied to what is presented in that work. And I think that that's a compelling and interesting idea. But, as it says, do not grieve, she cannot fade, forever wilt thou love, and she be fair. So here's the flip side, is that she's going to be young forever in this art. She's never going to get old. The love will never fade or become ordinary. He's always just at that moment of anticipation. So this kind of idea, continues in part 3, where it's like forever piping songs, forever new, more happy love, more happy, happy love. He's definitely trapped in the permanent throes of terrible love. It's never going to happen, right? All breathing human passion far above, that leaves a heart high sorrowful and cloyed, a burning forehead and a parching tongue. That this love, this great wonderful love, is going to be stuck with it forever. Okay, and at this spot we sort of change scenes a little bit. We move to a different part of the urn. So it says, who are these coming to the sacrifice? To what green altar, O mysterious priest, leadst thou that heifer lowing at the skies, and all her silken flanks with garlands dressed? Okay, so basically they're leading a cow to be killed, right? But in a sense, we don't know what the sacrifice is for, and the cow is always going to be on that walk to the gallows. The cow is always still going to have its life, but it's always going to be on the walk to death. And there's something terrifying about that as well. And then there's the idea of what's not on the urn. It says, what little town by river or seashore or mountain built with peaceful citadel is emptied of this folk, this pious morn? And little town, thy streets forevermore will silent be, and not a soul to tell why thou art desolate can ever return. Okay, so there's the idea of what's not pictured, it's only speculated. So that raises the question, sort of philosophically, of what is outside art, right? The viewer's addition to meaning via absence. Right? So there's the artwork, any work of art. So it's like people always ask about the Mona Lisa again. It's a great example. What is she smiling at? Right? Like there's that idea. Like why does she have that smile in her face? Why is it such a little smirk? It's kind of a coy smile, right? Or maybe she's even a little irritated. We can't tell. So there's that speculation of what's not shown, and that thing will never be able to be shown. Right? So that's also in it. Okay, so you can see, in this little poem, Keats is just ideas, right? Just like idea after idea after idea, huge ideas. And that leads us to sort of the end. Part 5, O Attic shape, that means Greek, fair attitude with breed of marble men and maidens overwrought with forest branches and the trodden weed, thou silent form dost tease us out of thought as doth eternity, cold pastoral, when old age shall this generation waste, thou shalt remain. Okay, so its permanence is both amazing and cold. Okay, it's cold and sort of lifeless, but when everybody who's alive today is dead and gone, this art and what it pictures will still be there. That lover will still be trying to get that kiss long after, all the rest of us are gone. So there's something great about that, but then there's also something terrible. And that brings us to the last two lines of the poem. Beauty is truth, truth beauty, that is all ye know on earth and all ye need to know. There's a big debate about these last two lines. Some people say that it diminishes sort of the effectiveness of the poem, that it sort of seems like beside the point, that it's sort of a deus ex machina, it's just sort of like, oh, you're bringing in this, beauty, truth, yada, yada, yada type thing at the end. And it's sort of detracting from the idea of permanence that's in the rest of the work. On the other hand, there's the idea that it's a really sort of fascinating argument, right? Beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That is all ye know on earth and all ye need to know. That's really interesting because it's making this direct link between like what is beauty and what is truth, and basically saying that they are in a sense equivalent. And where you see beauty, that's where you see truth, and where you see truth, that's where you see beauty. And that's a compelling argument in and of itself to make. So lots of stuff going on in this poem. It's one I can honestly say that if when you read it you just are like, whoa, I don't get it, don't feel bad. Okay, it's a difficult poem, but I assure you, if you keep spending time with it, keep getting more used to this type of language, it will get easier for you, and then sort of the beautifulness of it will be allowed to blossom. And of course, as we know, beauty is truth, right? Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about in regards to Keats is this great little idea of negative capability. Okay, negative capability. It's a fascinating idea. And he talks about it just in this little tiny letter that he wrote to his brothers, George and Thomas. And in this, there's a lot of stuff he talks about in this letter, but the big thing, of course, in Beauty and Truth as well, but the one thing that we really want to talk about is just this negative capability idea. And here's kind of what it is. Okay, it says, several things dovetailed in my mind, and at once it struck me what quality went to form a man of achievement, especially in literature in which Shakespeare possessed so enormously. I mean negative capability. That is when a man is capable of being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. Okay, so here's basically this boiled down, is that negative capability is the idea of all of these things out here in the world that we don't know, that are problematic, but rather than like sort of grasping after them and like trying to figure it out, eventually coming to a point of peace where you're able to accept that you do not know the answer and that you will never know the answer. And then it says that that's the quality went to form a man of achievement, a person who has figured it all out, an enlightened person, some would say, is this sort of idea of being able to accept what you do not know. That once you can accept sort of the impossibility of knowing all things in the world, that then and only then will you have achieved true awakening. And I think there's a lot of beauty to that, and a lot of marvelousness to this concept, that to really like get somewhere to really figure it out, you must, in a sense, accept and let go. And that's something that sort of, in a way, all of us need to keep in mind, and all of us need to sort of have that same sort of humility, because at the end of the day, we can't necessarily know the answers to all of our questions. So, we can either race after them and argue about them and freak out, or we can kind of accept it and deal with it, and only then will we be liberated.